Blanket NDAs are now illegal. What can you finally tell us about your former employer? My separation agreement ends today, so sorry about it, guys. Woman shrugging, medium light skin tone, I'm 36, 35 at the time. Abercrombie & Fitch home office. They knew their boardwalk was dangerous, I didn't. People had been slipping and falling on it for years. Then me happened. I slipped and fell, which caused an L1 burst fracture. I ended up needing urgent surgery to fuse T11L3 in order to stabilize the fracture. I was hospitalized for 8 days and out of work for 5 mo. They are self-insured, basically meaning that they administrate their own workers' comp stuff, not the state. They fucked it all up so comically badly. They made my life a living hell on top of it being an actual living hell because of the horrific pain I was in due to injury and surgery. I had to quit my side job as a server, expenses skyrocketed, and I was isolated and financially devastated as a result of the accident. And I cannot stress enough how incompetent the claim administrator assigned to my case was. If she could screw it up, she did. Their people talked a lot of shit to my attorney about how badly they wanted me to come back. I had another job offer during that time that I passed up on as a result. Then on January 20th, they informed me that my position was eliminated due to a reduced budget after record-breaking profits. And so they threw me out like trash. I'm left with PTSD, daily pain, and a rigid spine full of titanium that never needed to happen. And they fucking fired me, which we are all absolutely certain was not retaliation in any way, shape, or form. So, that's my honest review. Blessedly, I start my new job on April 10th, so I won't have too much of a gap in my pay schedule to make me homeless. Fuck everything that entire fucking company let slip out their lips. A window and siding company in the Midwest, not renewal by Anderson. They will inspect the work that needs done, come up with a number for the work. Add a grotesque amount to that number. Then, offer you discounts to get closer to the actual amount to make it seem like you're getting a great deal. If they tell you they'll give you the manager discount as a one-time courtesy to sweeten the deal, it's bullshit. For example, say they quote you at $35K for the job, but can drop it down to $15K after discounts and specials, $10K if they do the manager discount. $10K is the actual true amount for the work and the discounts are bullshit fluff. They also brag about being rated A+ with the BBB. That's only because they exploit a loophole with keeping that score with the BBB. You can be a shithole of a business and be A+ as long as you acknowledge customer complaints and have written proof you did, whether you actually resolved it or not. Just have to acknowledge the complaints. They claim a lifetime warranty on all of their windows and siding, however, will only honor the warranty if they can gain from it. An example being, a customer I worked with had his window broken during a storm. He called them to come out and said they could replace the window. However, they would be charged to repair the frame itself as it was damaged. I inspected the frame, it was pristine. The window got hit with a branch and only broke a single pane. They're a scummy fucking business. Like any narcissist, at least one of his kids hate him. He moved to exploit workers while you had to pull teeth to get a raise. He exploited COVID loans and ended up with a brand new Tesla. He always told me not to have an us vs them mentality, while constantly reminding me that I'm upper management and not to be friendly with my staff. I came from the bottom up in that company and my staff meant the world to me. I was firm when needed, but they all knew I had their backs. After 10 years, I got fired 2 weeks after I came home from vacation. BC a suck-up kissed his ass. He had told me upon coming back that I'd never have the GM position when the current retired. Once all that happened, I stopped doing extra. Kiss ass guy worked 75 hours the week after I got fired and then quit. They spent 6 months having to redo everything. BC I was the one who developed our digital systems. Almost all of my old staff quit within that time. The company I work for now I absolutely love. They really appreciate me and my experience. Never going to manage a place like that again. BC, I don't want that pressure. 5 years was long enough. We also have a lot of their clients, so it's funny that it happened. Ever find out in statewide news that your employer ed you out of a massive bonus? 9.5 years ago, the company I worked for at the time was sold. The former owner set aside what averaged to $20,000 per employee as a gift to everyone working there at the time. Statewide news reported on it, citing the dollar figure and saying it was scaled by years of service. This was how most of us found out about the bonus. The next day, most of us received $100 to $350 bonuses. Mine was 1/70th what I was supposed to get. Now, don't look a gift horse in the mouth, but what the hell, right? A few people rolled in with 6-figure vehicles over the next 2 weeks. This was also after many of us worked ridiculous unpaid overtime for the previous year. And raises were 0% for the year. Oh, and the profit-sharing annual bonus was a fraction of the previous year's because executive management changed the way the metrics were calculated. So, they put out a story about philanthropy and screwed us all out of tens of thousands. If you think that's bad, the company did something 100x worse a few years later. I won't share that one, too identifying. Glad I don't work there anymore, and most of the executives probably already have a large pit reserved for them in hell. There is no fucking way you were overtime exempt. They often illegally list people as it to get out of paying them overtime. Very illegal. An employment lawyer often just takes a cut of your settlement money and nothing if you lose. So you can afford a lawyer if this happens. I worked for a great fintech startup that got acquired by another company that was pretending to be a fintech, but was actually a private equity company that would buy and gut competition. The owner of the new company is a real-life billionaire villain. He bought an island and cut off beach access to the locals. A real piece of shit. My team wasn't touched in the acquisition because we were deploying the product to the customers, so we were the ones that brought in the revenue. At one point, the new owner was a huge twat to my awesome boss. At that point we started a mass exodus. 90% of the team left in the next 2 months. This killed a $10 million project and set the fuckers' acquisition goals back by years. I know who this is. I worked for the company many years ago. Lots of Italians winking face. Sadly, this scenario is way more common than you might think. Well, not the buying the island part, but most of the rest of it. Oracle LOL, definitely Larry Ellison. I worked for the political consultant best known in DC circles for having gotten a dead fish in the mail from Rahm Emanuel. The consultant was a super weird boss. Full of shady business practices, including expensing all of his personal shit like family vacations to the business. But this is the story that tends to blow minds. My former employer had me print out his emails so he could handwrite his responses, which I would type up and send back. ETA, no, I wasn't his assistant LOL. He was too cheap to hire one. So he'd pull people off time-sensitive client projects to do this crap, which turned everything into chaos. One of the many reasons turnover was high and the business failed. That last part is not unheard of or even uncommon in DC, where we have octogenarians making policy. It would be funny if it weren't so sad how so many people refuse to become computer literate despite such technology being a normal part of life for 20+ years at this point. I'm totally taking a shit on the front walk next time I pass through Columbus on my way to visit pals in Granville. I worked for an attorney in his 60s who did the same thing with emails. We literally had folders we used for the inbox and sent mail. Not wanting to sound insensitive, but how the fuck have you not received a significant compensation payout? I would definitely be speaking to a personal injury lawyer if I was you. A friend of mine was injured at work doing something he didn't want to do but was ordered to. He fell and broke his knee, company admitted fault, took about 4 years but he received a multi-million-pound payout for lost income. He was a civil engineer on huge infrastructure projects, Their doctor determined his injuries prevented him from effectively performing the requirements of that job going forward, so they had to pay the equivalent of his salary until retirement age. Got it all in one lump sum. A publication I worked for completely embezzled from the parent company. The editor-in-chief hired their best friend as creative director. Creative director contracts their husband as a men's fashion editor when the publication had no men's fashion section and was not a fashion-related pub. He was paid thousands monthly on retainer and almost never came into the office, and if he did, he never did any work. On top of that, he was paid usage fees for travel images he took and were printed. That family took a 1-week trip for a story, brought their child, and submitted a $40,000 expense report after for it. Oh, then there were the future invoices for her husband's usage fees for his photos, while they were being paid to be there because it was for a story. Other editors-in-chief from other publications were given a $25,000 clothing budget every year and a daily black car driver to take them to the office. When I worked for another title in the building, that EIC submitted a very high expense report which included his groceries. The company would even provide interest-free down payments to EICs for homes, but they stopped doing that. Meanwhile, they ran multiple rounds of layoffs a year, consolidated staff so they worked across multiple titles, and paid peanuts to regular employees. I was laid off from that company twice within 2 years, and they didn't vest my 401k match because both times I missed the cutoff by months. I know this is really not tackling the core of your comment, but man, it's really depressing hearing about someone who's handed an editor's position as a way to steal money. I think even if someone gave me a job like that as some kind of scam, I'd enjoy at least trying to do the job. It'd be neat to be an editor at a magazine, especially if you're aware your job is complete nonsense and inconsequential. No stress, free money, cool job. I know a lot of people don't like doing any work at all, or this guy probably had some absurd job somewhere else where he was making more money and this was just a bonus grift, but I think a lot of people would just collect the money and never show, regardless. Doesn't surprise me at all. Publishing and fashion are both industries where the inner circle flagrantly skim off the top, and the intersection even more so. Our sales department deliberately used deceptively vague language when selling extremely expensive travel packages to disabled passengers. They routinely left caregivers stranded with no accommodation other than the floor or sleeping in the same bed as their patients. They also routinely failed to provide accessible bathrooms for disabled passengers. They also lost/damaged wheelchairs and mobility aids. There was little to no sympathy for these passengers and their caregivers when they rightly complained. When I tried to raise the issue with higher-ups, I was labeled a troublemaker. I left the company back in 2019, but I know nothing has changed in regards to sales. The price for the cheapest trip offered was over $2,000 CND per person for a 2-day trip. The average booking was $8,000 for a 5-day holiday. They charge much more now. Can you imagine paying $8,000 and not being able to shower, or your mobility aid being lost? Then when you complain, you are told you were never promised anything, only we will do our best, or that shouldn't be a problem. Fucking disgraceful. Jesus. I don't know how someone can work for a company like that and not make it their mission to expose them. Please anonymously report to media.